Okay, so we are going to just jump straight into it at this point. Thank you guys so much for being as patient as you were. Obviously, the time got a little bit away from me, ended up a bit delayed getting back home. But even so, we've got a Rams breakdown to go through, and there is a lot to talk about here. And it stinks because sitting at 5-1, and I'm sure you guys had heard me talking about it. Pretty much everything on the offense that we were saying about things potentially getting better, there were always issues with the running game. There were becoming issues with the line in a hurry, but we were hoping that as Foles sat under center, things would slowly get a little better every time they played a game. And against Los Angeles, that couldn't have been more incorrect. And it's a huge bummer that we are where we are with this, but we've got a breakdown and we've got plenty to go through. And honestly, at this point, I'm just going to start. I want to go ahead and give a fair warning to everybody here that we're just going to do our best to go through and talk about the different problems in this offense, some coaching, some execution, which kind of ties to coaching, some personnel. I mean, there is so much to go through here, and I think, it's funny you ask that, Base, like, is it going to be painful? Maybe, but it's going to be painful in the sense that we're going to be talking about things that aren't holistically positive, but I'm sure that as we go through this, you're going to be thinking the same thing I am, which is, hey, at least we're talking about what you're seeing and going through it. Now, there are a lot of criticisms I have, but we'll get to them as we go. We will start, of course, at the start of the game, because why wouldn't we? Where the Bears decided that at some point they were going to, like, the first play of the game, what do we see? We see a run from David Montgomery as he is going to attack Aaron Donald's side directly, and the Bears don't get much. And I don't know what happened, so if you didn't know this, Matt Nagy must have realized that there was this new age attitude about running at Aaron Donald, that if you run straight at him, you can expose him in the run game. And I don't know why he decided that the Bears' offensive line was the right personnel to do that with, but they started out with what looks to me like an outside zone play, where they're just going to run outside zone and try to see if they can't take advantage of it. As you can see, everybody steps to their left, standard outside zone. Rashad Coward kind of seems to get caught back here as he tries to get to the second level. The tight ends actually execute a half-decent block, and then Aaron Donald does Aaron Donald things, kind of gets control of Charles Leno just a little bit. It looks like actually, Coward and Leno are doubling Aaron Donald. But either way, the Bears get 3 yards, and it could be worse, but yeah, it's not a great play. But even so, hey, you know what? The optimist here says that, the Bears are a throwing team. They're trying to establish the run, see if they can get something going. I don't blame them. You got to run to set up play action and try not to be one-dimensional with this Bears offense. At this moment, I remember thinking, okay, 3-yard run, we could do worse. Let's get to the next play. And then 2nd and 8, where it turns out that 3-yard run was actually a 2-yard run, and the Bears are sitting in 12 personnel, and here they are. I think they're about to run duo, which, if you remember from my Colts breakdown, is basically they're going to try to get a whole bunch of double teams going all across the offensive line. Let's see what they do and confirm. But either way, yeah, okay, so they're going to run duo, which is a double team here, a double team here, a single block on the backside, and Jimmy Graham, of course, which, as you can see, Graham gets beat immediately by Leonard Floyd, and the Bears run on 2nd down to the tune of 1 yard, and things start to me at least, as an avid Bears fan, I start to say, whoa, 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 whoa. What are we doing? Because at this point now, we've run twice at Aaron Donald. It's gone almost exactly as well as you'd expect with a Bears offensive line that's starting to call him a backup left guard is probably a bit kind in Rashad Coward. And here they come on 3rd and 7, trying to get all the yards at once through the air. And Foles does, if memory serves. They get a quick 1st down, and they keep going. But even so, the boat is already a little bit leaky because the Bears like you guys know, and we'll cover it as we will, but there's one play in particular I'm basically waiting for. Because the Bears offense seems like it's moving-ish. Hey, it's a passing team, but it gains a first down through the air, as we would expect. And from here, they just keep trying to run the ball. And in this case, they throw it. Of course they do. But yeah, exactly, Alex. Coward is an awesome pet project. He's a great kind of guy to have on the practice squad. But we saw in 2019 what happens when he gets consistent starting reps. And the Bears offensive line, as somebody pointed out, it's actually not terrible protection to kick off the game, but it is going to get worse over time. Unfortunately, you can consider that a bit of a spoiler alert. Thanks so much, Base. But so this is where the problems start, right? Jermaine Ifedi gets tagged for a hold that I'll go ahead and wind us back, because the Bears had just taken advantage. Again, they're a passing team. They got yards through the air, where if you watch Jermaine Ifedi right here, he's going to hold Aaron Donald, which, hey, people hold Aaron Donald. And not to mention, offensive linemen are getting away with holds all over the league, so why wouldn't you? Where the Bears are going to get kicked back 10 yards. And you know what? It wouldn't have been a problem if things didn't transpire the way that they do. Where here's the first play I really want to dive into. Okay, so it's 2nd and 12, right? And the Bears would have gotten a first down had Ifedi's hold not counted, and that's not really important. I just point that out to say at least the offense felt like it was moving at this moment, and the Bears are going to try to get some quick yards on sort of a double action play. I'm sure somebody knows what the concept's actually called, but basically they're going to have Allen Robinson run about 6 yards and an out, and then they're going to have Cordero Patterson run a slant post looking thing. It's really more of a slant right behind him. The key here is that if Allen Robinson comes into the middle and cuts out like this, and this linebacker goes and follows him, then Robinson is covered, and you go back to Patterson, who on this slant is going to end up wide open. So, and yeah, the Rams logo does look like it's asleep. But so, as we take a look at this play, you guys are going to see what ultimately Foles sees. So let's see if we can't get to the snap right there. So this linebacker is motioning over, and as we can tell, Robinson is covered. So Foles looks back. He spots Patterson right here. Agree or not, he's open. And all he's got to do, because this defender is moving in this direction, this defender moving to his right, all he's got to do is keep going, and he's got a great lane for open space. But for some reason, Patterson stops right there as Foles throws it, and the ball ends up out in front of him. If you watch this in quick action, or whatever you call the opposite of slow motion, real time, I guess, you're going to see Patterson stops his feet as Foles tries to get that ball out in catchable range, and Patterson's not there for it because he slows his feet down to try to stop in his own. Now, I went and did research just to make sure I knew what I was talking about as I went to break this play down. And apparently, according to absolutely any offensive coach, Foles is in the right here. So for what that's worth, you can tell anybody who argues with you that I told you so. Because this defender in particular is moving in this direction, this safety's too far out of the play. This guy doesn't matter because he's basically beat. The receiver needs to be running so that he can try to catch the ball, where, as you can see, he would have caught it about there or there, and see if he can run out the extra yard. The play call's actually fine, but the throw is fine, but the receiver basically doesn't run the right route because Cordero Patterson gets his assignment confused, decides he's going to sit down in a zone that he just doesn't need to be sitting down in. And of course, that pushes the Bears to a very early 3rd and 12, and they've already converted a 3rd and 7. They're pressing their luck to try to convert another one, and with the protection where it is, and frankly, as we can see, you can make a real argument that Patterson could have caught this anyways. We'll slow this down. This is the first time I've watched it from this angle in particular, but it seems like it does get to his hands, so Patterson even could have made a play on it there, but instead, oops. And yeah, Ian B, there is so much that you don't see on the broadcast. But so then, of course, the Bears go to 3rd and 12. They eat quick pressure. Foles does exactly what he's supposed to. I think they're going to run so the Rams run a 2-drop blitz where they basically send this linebacker right here. They're only rushing 4, but Pressure comes fairly quickly from Massey's side, and Foles realizes he's got to get the ball out. He protects it like he's supposed to and distributes underneath for Patterson, who picks up 7 yards. Everybody wins on this play. That's something I love to say as I'm watching film, is everybody wins occasionally, where the defense stops them on third down. The Bears get about 7 yards. If it was second down, sometimes these plays happen anyways, but the Rams are basically guarding the sticks, and so they're able to stop the conversion. And what drives me a little crazy here is, of course, you're going to see this crop up, right? The Bears called a decent play here on 2nd and 12. It just wasn't executed well. And why wasn't it executed well? Well, sure, I could look you guys in the eyes and I could say, well, it's because Cordero Patterson doesn't know what he's doing. But also, and somebody asked this in the chat, and I want to point out that you're correct, why is Patterson this backside route? Like, you clearly know that it's a potential option on this play, so why not have Darnell Mooney do it? Why not have Anthony Miller do it? Why not even have Javon Wims run this route? Why is Patterson running this route? In theory, maybe it's because they want to get this dynamic athlete, because, hey, credit to Patterson. When the ball's in his hands, he can do some really cool things with it. Maybe they're trying to get him in that lane like we've talked about, with the ball in his hands and he's running in space. But it doesn't happen, and it partially doesn't happen because he misexecutes. And that's been a theme in this Matt Nagy offense, where even when the right call is sent into the offense, it doesn't get executed well, and it really starts to hurt the offense at, almost every drive. We talked about this a lot in Tampa Bay. We talked about how they kind of overcame it in Carolina. It's really starting to hurt the Bears, and here 4 weeks in, I was expecting things to get a little better. Now, one thing that, like you're saying, Kanger, Patterson's a great option to potentially clear defenders out and occasionally get the ball, but you almost get the impression that, man, they're giving them to him so often that, surprise, surprise, when he doesn't execute, it doesn't go well at all. So then, of course, we get to other issues with this Bears running game, the Bears' running game is a mess, and a lot of it's just Jimmy's and Joe's based on what I can tell, because there are some issues where you could make an argument here. It's tougher than you think, Beast, staying on top of the chat and everything. There's an argument to be made, and I've talked a lot about this on Twitter, and I don't want to harp on the guy because he's one of our better offensive players, for better or for worse. But one thing I have noticed Montgomery does a lot is that he'll take the safe option. There's nothing wrong with cutting this back up the middle, but it sure does look like, if you watch the edge of this play, that actually the Bears are going to get the look they want, where Graham is in space and could have potentially blocked number 22 over here. And if Montgomery had gone around the edge, Harris is actually holding that edge block pretty well. Leno's got enough control of his man, and with Graham one-on-one, I'm not about to pretend Graham is some superhero blocker, but I've seen a lot of commentary on how the Bears run inside, the Bears run inside, the Bears run inside, the Bears run inside. There is a degree of that's running back choice, and don't hear this offloading blame off of Matt Nagy. It's more that, hey, when Montgomery cuts it up the middle and we only get 3 yards, eventually, you better believe we're gonna try to get to everything here. I really do think it does start to hurt the offense again a little bit, because one more time, if you watch this play, the best way I could put it is that Jordan Howard might actually run outside here. Like, I've watched a surprising amount of 2017 Jordan Howard to try to get a sense for what an outside zone runner should be, and there are plenty of times where Howard's angle is basically to go straight that way, and if he sees an opportunity to cut up the middle, he should. Montgomery instead basically goes almost directly off the handoff right up the gut, and the Bears don't get much, because if you take a look at this formation, because the Bears love running heavy sets, you're going to see that they're actually outnumbered. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Forget what I said. They're a hat on a hat. That's a learning experience. But so when the safety crashes down, maybe they're one-on-one, but instead, basically, they're forced to all hit a perfect man-on-man block. And because Montgomery takes this inside, Graham, who's free over here, can't get on his man. And not to mention that this backside double team doesn't get the man free to block the linebacker. Neither here nor there. There are a lot of problems with the running game, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure either that he'd be able to break out at the edge, but that's maybe a speed issue. There's, again, quite a bit to talk about here. But so then on the second down play, they run a pass play and so this is where Harris drops it. And I'm sure we all saw this. And this is where, again, you start to look back at execution issues. And if I say execution issues again, don't hear this as Roberts blaming the players and trying to absolve the coach. Matt Nagy is reportedly incredibly detail-oriented, and yet this Bears team for the last 2 years seems incapable of executing simple assignments, catching the football when it comes to them in plenty of cases, like we saw with Patterson, misreading routes and coverages, and ultimately they end up, you said it well, Ian B., it's everything. Mike, the throw is where you'd ask for it to be, and it could have been a first down, but instead you end up on a 3rd and 7, and the Rams right here, what you're about to see is that they actually roll into like a coverage flat sort of look. Me and a friend of mine couldn't figure out what coverage this was because Jalen Ramsey just trails Allen Robinson. It almost looks like Ramsey makes some kind of a mistake, but either way, this defender gets a head start to come into this flat zone as Foles reads that Robinson isn't open, and because of this space that's vacated, he's going to throw it to Patterson, and because he throws it to Patterson, he leads him right into the rolling defender, and he makes a play. Why do I point this out in this case? It's because there are going to be moments where, especially with a Bears offense that isn't just overflowing with talent, a good defensive play call is going to shut down what might have been a decent offensive play. You have to hit that 2nd and 7 catch, and that, in this case, is on Demetrius Harris. And what you're talking about, AJ, we will get there. And it might have been sky coverage. Honestly, Blaine, I'm still learning a lot of the intricacies of defensive coverage. I know a little more about offense than I do about defense, and that may very well have been sky. So I wish I could tell you, but either way, it's another failed conversion. So then the Bears go and they finally get this one to Kmet, and we'll speed up here in a little bit, but I do want to give Cole Kmet credit because, honestly, what's funny about this play is Cole Kmet doesn't actually create a ton of space if you watch him down on the sidelines, but he makes a nice contested catch anyways, even though Foles is getting hit at the time, which I point out because Foles gets hit a lot in a Bears uniform. But so Cole Kmet, who's got pretty solid straight line speed, doesn't necessarily separate from the linebacker, but credit to Foles, he does what he does. He gives his guy a chance, and Cole Kmet comes down with a very difficult ball right over the defender's head and a key pickup over time. This was an awesome catch, and it was pretty dirty on Donald's part. I couldn't believe he did that. But it's funny to me because this might be who Kmet is, right? Somebody who maybe he's not outstandingly physically impressive, and that's okay because at the moment he's come up with every contested catch you could ask of him, and you can work with that in the offense, especially with Demetrius Harris being a guy who's not catching the football. So this is another interesting play. I'll show it because why not? Kmet's really cool. I can talk more about that in a little bit, Beast. So here, I think Foles just makes the decision because quarterbacks all the time will make sort of predetermined decisions, and he gets Kmet one-on-one against a linebacker. Demetrius Harris is actually going to come open and free, and you know what? There's a decent chance Foles may have said, I don't want to throw it to Demetrius, I'm not sure he can catch it, but I doubt it. More than likely, what I've seen happen with quarterbacks is that they give this option one look, one quick look, and then they almost immediately work this because you're supposed to get a matchup out of it. And credit to Foles, he recognizes it isn't covered, pump fakes right there, catches the linebacker as Kmet curls upfield, making a decent move after the route, and then Foles buries it on a second throw where Kmet catches the ball. I found this a really neat example of what might actually be able to happen with chemistry over time, because again, this isn't open, and maybe a faster player could get open against the Rams linebacker, but Foles fools him there as Kmet curls upfield, and then Foles and Kmet combine to make a really solid play afterwards for a neat little 7-yard gain. Hooray. That's pretty cool. And you know what? There are some moments of positivity, especially if you do look at the quarterback play. I'll go ahead and give you guys a spoiler. I've actually thought from the moment that he came under center, Nick Foles isn't incredibly good, but there is an amazing amount of standard that comes from him where he'll do little things like we just saw, making a play with his eyes, making a play with his pump fake, thinking through the play, giving his guy a chance downfield, everything all up and down the gamut of what a quarterback can do, Foles is able to at least try and do, and there's a lot to be said for what he's able to show about the offense. And here, of course, the Bears are going to run another running play, and what is this? I think it's Donald versus Ifedi, and Donald gets the better of him, driving Ifedi way, way back. And I could talk about how Ifedi's pad level is insanely high, which, in case you're curious, there's that common phrase everybody knows about, like low man wins. And if you look at Ifedi's arms, he's not low in the slightest, and he hasn't been for about a week or two. So he gets driven back. Montgomery tries to make a play. Leno's losing a little bit of his edge block, sure. And Whitehair's not exactly dominating his matchup. Guys, we've seen this story before, that the Bears' run game just doesn't have the guys, at least it doesn't come across that way, to just win up front offensive line out of these heavy sets. That's one thing I'll cut to the chase right now and tell you that if I was going to complain about something, it's the fact that we keep lining up in these very, very run-heavy sets. Cole Kmet and Demetrius Harris and Bobby Massey, Jermaine Ifedi, Cody Whitehair, Rashad Coward, Charles Leno, and Jimmy Graham. Is that exactly the cadre of guys that you want to establish the run with? It's not for me. And we can do that in a little vengeful. I'm on a roll. When I look at this running game, I think you can run with it out of the shotgun, but look at what happens. When the Bears bunch up like this, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys within immediate striking distance of this run, which again goes up that way. So it's an 8-man box because the Bears have basically decided they're okay with that, and let alone the fact that there are 3 other guys close to the line that could fill in. It's, to me, there's something to be said for if you're not a strong running team, but you're built to throw the ball, at least line up like you're going to throw it more often than you run these heavy sets, because shocker, when you run at the heavy side of the field, not only are the Rams well aware that it's coming, and as you can see, they play it really well, but look at all these extra guys that can cloud the box whenever they want to. Kmet does a decent job of getting in the way of his, but nobody else is at the second level, and if Montgomery was able to slip through his block, it's not like he would have gotten much because there's just too many blue and gold jerseys there. It's trouble. And sure, you can run some play action. We'll talk a lot about play action in a little bit. But let me see. There's one other play that hey, if anybody is a Kmet fan, this one's another nice one. I think this is where he's going to slice across. Yeah, so he blows up that linebacker. And you know what? It's not an incredible block, but I'll slow it down just so we can all see it and appreciate, you know what? The young rookie, second round pick, tight end, wow, words. He hits that linebacker, creates a little bit of space, and the Bears are able to gain on like a 3rd and 3 enough yards to get it, which is neat. And you know what, Marco? That's the thing. There's a lot of data that says you don't actually have to be afraid of the run to run any play action because because just the idea that you might run the ball at all moves the defense. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So then, this is another problem. So this is the last execution play that we'll talk about for a little bit, because at that point, I want to go into a little more of the finer points of coaching. Here is what I will tell you right now was the Bears' best running play of maybe the year. Like, in terms of creativity, this is as good a running play as I've seen the Bears attempt. So I'll walk you through what they're about to do, right? So the Bears are about to have Cordero Patterson drift across, and he's going to get the ball on a quick toss, and he's basically going to run around the outside. Cole Kmet is going to take on Leonard Floyd right there. Darnell Mooney is going to make a great block, set up his guy to get blocked and get to the second level, and David Montgomery is going to get through the hole. You'll see in a second what the problem is, Jen, because there is a problem on this. If you watch this play, don't watch Patterson, watch the blocking. Take a look at this wonderful, beautiful running lane that Montgomery is running through. You got Bears blockers taking their guy all over the place. Kmet's doing just enough of a job on Kmet to create a running lane. Mooney's out in front, potentially able to block his guy. Montgomery is well on the way to hit his assignment, and all Patterson has to do is plant his foot like a kick return and just get upfield. So what does he do? He runs it outside. And that wonderful running lane, again, Montgomery's over here. He's making plenty of contact. Mooney is in the way of his guy. But now it just doesn't matter because Leonard Floyd's able to run Patterson outside the play, and the Bears get maybe 2 yards when all they needed. Yeah, exactly like you're saying, Akusi. The wide receivers, they like running outside, and you need a second running back that's going to be able to do this. And you know what? Like Tariq Cohen probably would have been able to. A true running back number 2 would have probably been able to. But I get annoyed because when Patterson touches the ball, this isn't even anti-Patterson. It's just that vision, as we've covered, is not his strength. He's not great at seeing a hole, which is a huge problem. And the Bears pay for it here because while it's awesome a good way to put it is, while it's awesome in Madden to give your biggest, fastest guy the ball and just have him chug through a lane, in the real world, you need to be able to read a hole and make a decent adjustment. And sure, Leonard Floyd drives Cole Kmet back, but I'll credit the rookie tight end. He's holding a ferocious run defender just enough in check that maybe he'll have to fight through an arm tackle, but that's about it. And it's something that I'm getting driven crazy by the lack of attention to detail, because that's as good a run as the Bears are going to get. And if Patterson, for instance, had gone inside, at this point he might be right here. And if if Darnell Mooney and Montgomery are able to basically work together to seal off enough guys, who knows, this could have potentially been a touchdown, which is a huge bummer. But yeah, you see this all the time, not just in the Bears running game. I mean, look at this, guys. The Bears are it's technically a heavy set, but you know what? Somebody said this earlier, it's a passing set. It's something that the Bears have shown that they're willing to pass out of in the shotgun. And because of that, they're able to get the Rams spread out just enough to make a play on the ground. And the same Bears offensive line is suddenly downfield executing assignments. It's to me anyways, the Bears are not good enough, and this is okay to say, to just line up and hammer it like it's 2006. But that same creativity we had in 2018, and we'll get to more of this later, would be huge around now, because I think that there's a ton of stuff the Bears would be able to do. Now, let's see if there's any other plays. We can talk about it. I like going chronological, but the Bears they run another running play. They get to 3rd and 5, which you could make a comment there about the fact that the Bears are just constantly running like a second running play. And sure, in theory, great for Nagy trying to establish the run, but they're a passing team with a passing strength, and this is as good a play as any to walk through real fast. So the Bears, if I remember correctly, yeah, okay, this is where the pressure issues start. So we can talk about that in a little bit, Vengeful. But so let me regain my bearings. Okay, here we go. So this is a 3rd and 5 on the end of the drive. And again, this is where the Rams go make a nice play. But I will say, so it's a 5-man blitz. Whitehair takes his guy. This linebacker is coming on a delay, so he's actually not going to get picked up. And because he doesn't get picked up, and Leonard Floyd, as you'll see, just roars around the edge, Nick Foles does his job. He sees the free runner. He finds the guy who's going into the space that one is vacating. Right here, that's Anthony Miller, because that's where the linebacker came from, and he immediately throws to it. That's his job. And the Rams make a nice play. They're able to cut this down for a quick 3 yards and a 3rd down hold. And this is where, if it was the Bears, I'd tell you it was a great play design, because they get exactly what they want. Foles does his job, delivers the ball, and Mooney's not able to make a play because they're ready for it. Credit to the Rams defense. They were able, when the Bears made mistakes, like we saw with Cordero Patterson early in the series, they were able to clamp down on the Bears at some point down the lane. And yeah, it's frustrating. And hey, you know what, Franklin? I wish somebody could get a touchdown, but there's a lot here, because this game had good moments. I was going to say it had good moments and bad moments, but it's pretty much just bad moments, and it's a huge bummer. So we'll skip this drive where I think Foles. So this is another play that, believe it or not, it kind of, fits into, there's something to say here. So the Bears are going to line up in the heavy set, and if there's one thing they do decently out of the heavy set, it's set up play action passes. Because say what you will, look at this pocket for Nick Foles. I'm going to talk about this a little more later when we actually get into like offensive theory, because I do want talk a little bit about offensive theory. But if the Bears we're going to make one change. I'll synthesize it for you. They need to go from right now, they're at about 16%. That is 16% play action percentage, up that thing to around 33. Sean McVay and Sean McVay and Bill Belichick are running hot at about 42% play action percentage, which, you know what? That's a lot, and I'd love to see that. But let's just start by doubling it, because there's something to be said here. When you run play action, the key here is that the defensive line, if we go back and watch, the defensive line has to play the run, especially because the Bears love to run out of these heavy sets. There's a legitimate argument to be made here that these play action passes might as well be the best way you can get a clean pocket and help out your offensive line. Look at this. The entire defensive pass rush is playing the run. And if Montgomery had gotten the run, great. Yeah, he'd be tackled, but that doesn't help the Rams in this case because it's right here. And one thing that I will say, so at first I thought this was a bad throw on Foles' part. Darnell Mooney makes a fabulous move, and the ball ends up a little too far out in front of him. But a defensive back friend of mine basically convinced me that if you watch this safety right here, he's about to range from the numbers all the way over. This is an absolutely insane range play by this safety who turns on the jets, interferes with Mooney just a little at the top of that throw, and it might slow him enough to contest the catch, because if he hadn't been there, Mooney might pick up about one extra step. The point here isn't to criticize Foles. If anything, I want to give Darnell Mooney props. And now take a look here for what he's able to do against this corner, where he just toasts him on the double move, which is awesome. What I really want to talk about is that, again, if there's a quick change for this offense that I'd love to see, it's a little more play action, because this throwing opportunity just didn't show up later in the game. These play action passes, and I can show you more, I've got a whole bunch written down, gave Foles the best pocket he could ask for and actually let him step into his throw. You'll see by the end of the game, he just stops stepping into the throws because he knows he's about to get lit up almost all the time. And if there's something that I would love to see fixed, it's let's run more play action, because it helps out an offensive line that we all know is a problem. Again, credit to the safety. He makes a great play. Foles puts this ball more or less where you'd like him to see, because what you don't want to do as a quarterback is you don't want to leave this ball over in this direction, because if it's near the corner, he can catch up and potentially make a play on it. You're trying to lead him away, and Foles kind of does, but man, does John Johnson here, number 43, just range over. And it's not quite Eddie Jackson level, but it's in the same category of like, wow, that is really, really good football, and it's on 2nd and down. So the Bears then get their next play. But I think, and let's see if it's the same one that I'm remembering it is. Okay, it is. This is a huge pain. So you guys might remember this one. This is where Nick Foles drops back, gets a pretty clean pocket, fires to Javon Wims. Wims doesn't get the first down, but they're spotted it anyways. And what really sucks about this play, let's go ahead and turn off the notifications. Thanks for bearing with me, friends. What really sucks about this play, let's see if they show it, because I can't go to the broadcast. That gets me demonetized. Dadgum. Okay, so you'll just have to trust me on this. Basically, what happens is the Bears run this. They don't get what they want. They're about a yard short, and Matt Nagy, but they get awarded the first down. This is the key here. And once they get awarded the first down, it takes them until the 18-second mark on the next play clock to get set up at the line. I've seen teams do this over and over and over. When they know a call went in their favor, they line up, they run a play. Exactly like you're talking about, Akusi. When you know it's close, you take it, you line up, and you do something. Instead, the Bears kind of lollygagged coming back up to the line, and I wish I could walk you through the broadcast. Just if you want to, especially if you have Game Pass, you can go take a look. The Bears just walked right on up. They started to kind of get in position, and then, oh darn, they threw the challenge flag and the ball got turned over. So that would be bad enough, because the Bears have now lost the Bears have now lost a first down. But instead, they line up on 4th and 1. They're going to run the most obvious QB sneak in the world. There's nothing wrong with that. QB sneaks are often obvious. And as much as everybody said they don't get the yards, I think Foles falls forward and does get them. But as you saw, there's a flag that flew because, oh man, Rashad Coward jumped off sides, or whatever you want to call it, a false start. This is such a glaring mental error. And no, I'm not the biggest Rashad Coward fan in the world. I think he was very clear in 2019 about exactly how good he was. Even so, I'll put this on the head coach and say, you've got to be better than taking a 5-yard foul on a huge 4th and 1 where you're going for it from the 20. For crying out loud. Yeah, how good he was, to be clear. You're going for it from the 20. This is very Arians-esque, and oh man. And sure, you know what? I wouldn't surprise me if Nagy lit into Coward. I didn't see it on the broadcast because I do a whole bunch of things like mid-game. But as I watched this play, I know this really dawned on me of like, okay, so they were way too patient lining up on something that you should think anybody would just line up, run a play. You've got a quick out. Like there's something in the playbook that the Bears could have easily lined up and just had Jimmy Graham run like a quick out on 1st and 10, and they'll get the 4 yards. You could just hand it off. Who cares? Just have everybody stand around for whatever matters, and it's still 2nd and 10. But instead, they lollygag. They get 4th and 1, and Rashad Coward jumps off. And oh my word, at this point, things really start to turn for the worse. So then afterwards, you know what, Brett? I have no idea. Every once in a while, anyways, every once in a while, these streams seem to either go perfectly or they have a broadcasting hiccup. So hopefully at some point, the stream will stabilize because I've got the Ethernet wired in, like we're doing what we can. But so anyways, and then at this point, the Bears, once again, take a look at this. They run a play-action handoff with Patterson, and you're going to see he gets a clean pocket. If the Bears, at the very least, they'll be able to create these clean pocket opportunities for a guy who's been a fairly accurate thrower. And then they throw it right here real quick to Allen Robinson, who hauls it in for... Actually, it's not a catch, but the Bears get the play call. And you know what, James? I'll tell you what, the Rams defense was awesome. Like, massive credit to them. The Bears offense did not look good, but the Rams defense was playing really, really well and certainly made us look like what you could call it boys among men. You could say whatever you want, but either way, the Bears offense looked outclassed by the Rams defense. And I will say a lot of it was because it seems like Matt Nagy got away from what was working. Like, take a look here. He takes a quick look over at this side of the field, checks, it's not there, but look at all this time. He's able to step into the next throw. I don't know why he doesn't. He gets panicky with his feet. Maybe it's because Floyd was flying around the edge, but either way, he delivers enough of a ball to an open receiver, and it's a pretty nice play. And then afterwards, I wish that I could show you this. The Bears don't get lined up for 30 seconds. And you may wonder, like, okay, why is that a problem? Because on the broadcast, you could see that Robinson didn't catch this ball. That same ball, you know what, I'll go back to it one more time just so that maybe we can see it a little bit. Robinson gets his hands under it, and then it flits through and hits the ground. It's a huge, like... Then at that point, once again, they're slow getting up to the line, so they almost lose this. Ooh, we might be able to see it here. So let's slow it down. Yeah, so that ball goes straight through Robinson's hands and hits the turf, and you can see it very clearly on the broadcast, and they are lucky that they didn't throw, or that they didn't, what would you call it, throw the challenge flag, because... Had they, this play would have come back. But instead, the Bears, like you can kind of see, are very slow getting set up. They gotta switch formations. They gotta do this and that and take their time. And again, you know what? There's nothing wrong with a shotgun set with one tight end. I have no issue with this. Like having Graham on the end, it's not a heavy enough set. And take a look at what it does to the box. This is a 6-man box. If the Bears want to run into this, that is perfectly fine. Like you don't need in any sense to be running all these running plays into 7 or 8-man boxes without the ability to exploit those matchups. And right here, I can't remember what the Bears actually run. Just a quick out for Graham, 6 yards, but it takes forever for them to get set up. And at any point, the Rams could have easily challenged it and taken this off the board. This is the kind of stuff that I feel like is easily assignable to Nagy. Why is this so difficult? Like you get a gift from the referee and you're almost going to give it back because you're taking as long as you are. So then let's see. There's a whole bunch of plays starting around now where the Bears just get into trouble with what they are and aren't going to do. Okay. So this is one where, if you remember, right after this, so before this play and after this 6-yard gainer, Mooney tries to line up in the backfield. He doesn't have any idea where he's going, and the Bears basically end up having to burn a timeout. And you know what? At least they come out of the timeout with a pretty good play here, where Darnell Mooney is going to rotate from one side of the field to the other and then run back across the grain to get wide open for a quick 18-yard gainer. But either way, like, man, why did that need a timeout? Like, so they waste a timeout because they can't get into formation now 4 weeks into the Foles offense, which is a problem. You don't want to be wasting timeouts, especially in big games like what they had like this one with the Rams. And then I think, and Game Pass is going to skip it because it doesn't show the broadcast, right after that play, so after timeout 1, and then one play, they have to call another one because they don't know what they're doing. And these are the kinds of things where I look at this and I ask myself, why in the world is this offense as hard as it is? Like, and eventually we'll see. We can get into that in a little bit. But there's so much about this Nagy offense that feels way overcomplicated. Why in the world do we need to use Patterson on almost every formation? Why do we need to run so much out of these heavy sets? Why, as simple as it sounds, can't we, let's see, this play works if it is a heavy set, because it is. In this setting, they line up in a shotgun formation with a tight end on this side, and so, as you can see, again, this becomes a clogged run box. And if I had to guess, the primary reason that this ends up working like it does, because this is where Mooney's going to come across, is because they're able to bait the Rams into thinking that it's a run play. And so Allen Robinson's going to clear out, and I actually don't know how he does it, so we'll see. Yeah, he runs a quick slant route. Mooney separates from the zone coverage. This is really good. Also, nice little pick by Robinson downfield here. Totally legal based on the way that he runs it. And so he catches it. Mooney's able to make a play in space. Good job. And it comes from the fact that the Bears are able to use formations that, at least, even if they imply run, they're throwing it. So again, if the Bears can play a little more with that idea that maybe we're running it, but maybe we're throwing it, like use more play action, especially if you're going to keep running these heavy sets that don't get you anything. But I am a-okay if somebody said it in the comments, use more 11 personnel, because man, it really does seem past a certain point like we don't want to put our best 11 guys on the field. Instead, we want to try to play football with 16 players on offense. And sure, good offenses can do that, but the Bears aren't that. So then, of course, I could point out that right around here, the Bears start edging into that territory where they're basically going to get out-muscled by a good Rams defense, which is a problem. Nixlin, I can tell you that Nick Foles is fine. Is he good? I mean, he's good compared to what a lot of Chicago quarterbacks have been. Is he bad? Not compared to what a lot of quarterbacks have been. He's kind of invisible. He mostly does his job. And sure, he makes some mistakes here and there, but most quarterbacks do. His footwork gets frenetic around here, this sack should just about tell you everything. So take a look at this, and it's not going to break your heart. But what you're about to see is, I think it's a 1st and 10 coming out of a timeout. Allen Robinson is going to see this off coverage right here. So he's going to do what the Bears have been doing for weeks. He's going to run up, and he's going to run a curl route. This guy is not going to care. I'm just going to tell you so that you can see it. Then Cordero Patterson's going to run a quick in route. So if that's not open, at least Foles can throw it to Cordero Patterson. But this linebacker is going to step back and cover it, and the safety is going to drop down on it. And Foles basically isn't going to really have anywhere to go with it, because just to call it like it is, Nagy's offense has hit a point where people know what's coming. Like, I'll slow it down. This cornerback is never fooled. Cordero Patterson's man, never fooled. Foles steps up, realizes that there's just about nothing he can do with it, and just sits down and takes the 4-yard sack. If he was omnipotent, he might have found Anthony Miller. I think it's Miller. We'll watch the play and find out. Might actually be Mooney. Okay, so Wims is the closest to open, because I've watched this a couple times. And I agree, Mike. That's a great point. If Patterson's actually running this inside, maybe that's what Foles is pausing for right here. Just amazed that Patterson sat down with room right here in the in the offense. And sure, Allen Robinson's trying to run back and break open, but a lot of times these things are based on timing, and you're trying to see if you can't connect with your receivers immediately after the break. And because the offensive line can't protect forever, and they get into way more problems back in the end. Let me see. What are you saying? Let's see. Yeah, that it's trouble where the Bears haven't had a whole lot of good quarterbacks. And so Foles, one thing I'm finding refreshing, I've said this a couple times in plenty of my videos, if you're new to my channel, I'll let you know that one of my favorite pieces of work is the Nick Foles breakdown that I have in my 2019 offseason playlist, because in it, I basically describe both the good and the bad of what he offers, and my final verdict is that Foles is basically a mirror. When he's on a really good offensive team, like the 2017 and 2018 Eagles, he'll make plenty of plays because he'll serve balls up like the one we talked about with Kmet a little bit earlier, where he just lobbed up the play action pass and Kmet came down with it. But if his line can't hold for him, he's going to get in trouble very, very quickly. And it's going to make him look really, really bad. And certainly the reflection that he has given us about the Bears offense hasn't been a good one thus far. And I do think a lot of it comes down to the coach, because I mean, I'd love to say it's anything else, but after a certain amount of weeks, it becomes apparent that Chicago doesn't really know what it wants to do. Another great example of issues that the Bears had on offense. So what you're about to see here is that the Bears, they need 10 yards. So here's where they are. Here's where they're going. So they actually got to get some distance here. They got to get 10 yards. And, so what they're going to try to do is that they're going to have Anthony Miller run a deep post route and Cole Kmet run a deep dig. So his goal is his being Miller, is to run downfield and occupy the attention of this inside defender if he carries him up, and these two safeties, so that whoever Cole Kmet is on, I think it might be Ramsey, but it also might be this interior defender. Can't quite remember. He can work that one-on-one and try to make a play over the middle of the field. Here's the problem. Let's see if we can't catch the snap. Leonard Floyd down here pretty much gets an unimpeded run at Nick Foles, where Foles gets a deep drop, Massey does absolutely nothing, and he gets slammed before Cole Kmet's even broken. Granted, it's Jalen Ramsey, but so he's waiting for the Miller combination to resolve, and some people, I'm sure you're thinking of it, are going to say, well, Darnell Mooney's open. But remember, he being Foles in this case, needs Mooney to carry into the middle of the field because he's got to wait for this to resolve before he can make his decision. And instead, he doesn't get the chance to. Floyd's on him before he was able to do just about anything. Here it is live. Just rips right around the edge, plays basically over before it starts, and the Rams shut him down. It's a problem. I mean, I would love to say that there's something here about like, wow, the Bears offense really, it was so close, but they laid an egg in this game. And the Bears defense didn't do great either, but I don't want to talk about them for a little bit because I think it's easy for Chicago to get angry at their defense, but this was an offensive problem. What stinks is, again, had the Bears, I don't know if play action would have actually gotten anybody to bite, to be totally fair, but if they had, I don't know, there are these ways that you're hoping that the Bears are able to create protection, help out your offensive line a little bit, and it's a real problem. Andrew, I don't know why in the world Pace is so hesitant to make moves to improve the offensive line. You can take a look here, and I like reading body language sometimes. In this case, take a look at David Montgomery and what he's going to do. He needs to help wherever there needs to be help. So what he's, of course, going to do is jump forward, take a quick look at Aaron Donald before making any decision about where to go. Because he takes that look, and because Floyd gets as far around as he does, Montgomery clearly thinks the problem is going to come from up in the middle, and it doesn't. It comes from around the edge, which is a huge problem. And Mike, you know what? You can totally say that. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying that Cole Kmet trying to beat Jalen Ramsey on a dig route is a problem. At least if you had protected, Darnell Mooney would have come across and just take a look at all that beautiful open space that Mooney might have been able to get into. But yeah, I mean, it's problematic because when your quarterback, as Foles kind of mentioned to Brian Greasy, whether it was on the record or not, if he drops back and he can't, like, he doesn't have time to run the play, there's just not a ton that he can do. And yeah, exactly, Jay. What generally happens in this case is what you want to hit that shallow crosser, but you're waiting for it to get to the middle of the field so that Mooney has more and more time to separate from this corner. Because if you throw it to him right now, Mooney basically has to catch the ball and then keep running. But instead, if you have the opportunity to let this develop and for Mooney to basically get to about this midfield spot, you can throw it to him where the ball hits him right around there, and then he can curl up and run right in the gap that the defense has made. But yeah, problematic either way. It gets open, but you have to give it a second. Anyways, this continued. And you could talk about timeout mismanagement. You could talk about the fact that the play calls that came in seemed kind of dense. One that I pointed out that I was like, what in the world are we doing? It's 2nd and 14 after that Foles sack I showed you earlier. And yeah, Mike, I knew as soon as I made that video that bad things were going to happen, by the way. That fun little Bears goofy thing. I was like, it's bad. But so, of course, we lost. Anyways, what really drives me wild, y'all, this is a 2nd and 14 play. We have Allen Robinson, Javon Wims, and a bunch of tight ends. What in the world are we doing? Oh, by the way, if you do want to say anything about the teams on the back wall, this team right there may be the Bears' ticket to success, the Cowboys, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, it was a fun video. Why not, right? But so the Bears are going to line up in a heavy set, for crying out loud, on 2nd and 14. What in the world? Not only do they line up in a heavy set, but they actually run the ball against an 8-man box. And y'all, it goes like you'd expect it to. Like, what is that? How does that help? I don't understand this. I don't understand what Matt Nagy thinks he's doing when he lines up in these heavy sets, especially in a long down situation, and doesn't even call play action. Like, just run it out of the shotgun. There's a lot of stuff you can do from 11 personnel that you can't do from a heavy set. Why? How does this play call make sense? It doesn't make any sense to me to line up on 2nd and 14 against this front and try to run an outside zone play, expecting to somehow what? Suddenly beat the Rams, suddenly gain 8 yards. I mean, what? How do I grade this? You know what I mean? I really like to think that I'm a pretty optimistic guy, and I'll try to find the bright spots of your football team because I like it when people point out the bright spots in mine. But this is ridiculous from a coaching standpoint, especially when, if you take a look at almost anything the Rams did, I mean, the Rams immediately identified, just to point something out, I talked about this last week, that if you can get Roy Robertson Harris, Robert Quinn, and Roquan Smith on the same side of the field, you take advantage of it and you get a big run. What is the first play the Rams do? That They go straight at those three and immediately rip off an 11-yard gain that's only not longer because Roquan Smith, to his credit, I guess, he gets sealed at the top level, but at least he's able to shed this block number 77 eventually and make a play a little bit later right there. It's not a good play because a good play would deny like more yardage, but it's a decent play, I guess, to save it. From there, the Rams, you know what? You don't need a running threat to set up play action, but man, it helps. And the Rams were able, this is a 4-yard gain, but even on their 4-yard gains, it feels like they're so much closer than the Bears were. I mean, this was, I'm sure you guys will agree, almost like a masterclass, sort of. And instead, the Bears then, like, take a look at this. This became a huge problem, and it's just about the only defensive analysis you need to see, because you know what? Like, I'll just give it credit where credit is due. This Bears defense is talented. They did play a bad game against an offense that's got talent, and McVay came out with the right game plan. But man, Khalil Mack's going to crash down on this run, and he must have gotten victimized on this like 4 times because Jared Goff pulls the quarter, and he is so free, able to throw it easily to number 17 here, who just runs right on into space, takes advantage of the run stuffer that is Danny Trevathan in ISO coverage, and there's nothing Danny can do. I mean, this is just the right play call. You saw Nagy do it. It's sometimes you're just going to fool the defense with misdirection, and the Rams used simple play action like this to get basically all the way down the field, and I mean, it looked a lot easier, I'll tell you that. And what drives me wild is that here we are, and the Bears don't know what they're doing. The Rams clearly do. You can watch this drive, and you can see that like the Rams had a plan to get the ball out quick and take advantage of the fact that Fuller loves to line up 10 yards off the ball, for crying out loud. So if Fuller, like we see here, is going to line up 10 yards off the ball, they're going to throw quickly underneath and set up Cooper Kupp on a nice little picking action there for a quick 8 to 10 yards. It's easy. It's so easy. And they're able to use these play action bootlegs, these tendencies of the Bears to make quick plays and get Goff comfortable in a game that I could find you some lowlights if you want to see it. Goff didn't want to play well. Like, Goff was kind of struggling, especially when they put him back in the pocket. This might be an example. That's like 3 hitches and an overthrow. He didn't want to face this Bears pass rush. Like, he was thinking about it. It was clearly in his head. And so the Bears send 5. They don't even, Bilal Nichols gets some pressure, which is neat. But from there, McVay is able to calm his quarterback down by consistently calling runs that attack gaps in the Bears and play action plays that make things easy for him. That's a tough ball. Like, this is your standard. Oh boy, did we get a penalty on this? Oh, this is that, is this the, no, it's not. All right, let me take a look at what this is. This is defensive holding. So even when the Bears get a good play, it went against them and they did something. When the Bears get a good play, it went against them and they did something that was a problem. And no, exactly, Marcus, he didn't go deep against the Bears every time. And yeah, like the Sean Gibson volleyball spike. I mean, there's tons of stuff, thank you, James, by the way, that you could say about these Bears. Like this, another play. It's so easy. And the Bears could run this kind of stuff. Maybe not with Jared Goff, or they're not going to let, they're not going to let Foles run the ball, to be totally fair. But look at this. The Bears are able to generate that same kind of space off play action, because the underrated part about play action, let me let's make something clear. There are a whole lot of people that think that because your running game is as good as it is, you're able to catch guys in the defensive backfield shifting over. In my opinion, the big key to play action is that it's going to take this entire front 4, if not the front 7, and they're all going to just go that way. And this, in my opinion, is something that the Bears need to deal with. Because if they're able to do that, look, here's the whole front 7. And no, the Bears' defensive backfield hasn't, taken the bait. They're not 2 steps in trying to defend the run. But what they are is they're back in coverage. There is no pass rush right here because of the play-action fake. And man, Exactly like you're saying, Stoop. It just looks as if the other team is a lot more prepared, and they came in, the Bears fans, I said it, you probably said it, hey, we could get some really, really great pass rush here. And McVay came out with a whole bunch of play calls that said, I'm not going to let you. Like, you can't, or the play action fake, partially because the Rams running game is as good as it is, but also partially just because this is the nature of play action, and even the Bears do it and get this kind of stuff. The Bears have to honor it. And so they do honor it. Goff ends up legging out a couple yards. And what I will say about Jared Goff, people are asking, like, how good is Jared Goff? What I'll say about Goff is that he has progressed into a point where he can make simple reads, and credit to him. He'll make simple reads. He used to really struggle with even those. And when he's set and throws the football, he is crazy accurate. And you know what? That's something that I'll say was a real problem with Mitch. Like, what really ground my gears about Mitch wasn't just that he was struggling to read the field, but it was that when he had what you would consider a layup, he didn't tend to hit the mark. Goff, at least, when you present him a window, he'll fit the ball in exactly like it should be, and McVay's really able to work with that. I only say that because I think Goff is one of the more interesting quarterback evolutions of recent time, because he was really, really strugglesome a little while ago, and oh yeah, SoFi Stadium looks great. But so they keep running play action. The Bears keep having to honor it. And look at this time. Jared Goff even throws a bad ball out of this because I think he's really worried about the pass rush. But look at this. I gotta do it in real time. Let's count Mississippi's, right? So from the snap, let's time it up. You get 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. He finally releases the ball, and that's even a slow Mississippi count. Like, there's this play action creates these opportunities. You've seen 3 play action passes and 2 runs. You don't have to be balanced in this. There is no mythos around play action that says you have to run more runs than play action passes. And McVay's proving it. Goff here, he just sits in the back and he misses his throw because I do think he doesn't like playing the Bears. There's an interview where he talks about how Khalil Mack is his least favorite player to play against in the league. I do think he started from almost a rattled state because his footwork's decent. I mean, he just whiffs that. And the Rams are able to say, okay, no problem. 3rd and 4. Like, we can make this work. And let's see what they do. Oh, do they not get this one? I really thought that oh yeah, we stopped them on the first drive. Anyways, that's a quick reminder. This is actually a play that I think Khalil Mack makes. People were looking at this like, what's going on? Because what you're about to see is a quick bubble screen where I think the receiver's supposed to catch the ball and go back outside. But if you watch Khalil Mack, he's going to get over the top of that defender and end up making a play that he doesn't get a stat for, but credit to him, he recognizes the screen right there. He's already on top of the receiver, and he pushes him back inside where the receiver really doesn't have a chance anymore. And credit to Mack. That's a really nice defensive play, and the Bears defense came through when they needed to. The Bears defense had a bad day, and that's all right. Like, it was a rough day, and they still only gave up 10 points in the first half to a team that looked infinitely more prepared than they were.